Hello, Sachin.
Hi,
My name is
Stan.
Stan. Thank you for joining us today. As I was saying, we're going to have a nice conversation, ask you some questions about your experience, and hear from the professional in your field as to where things are at the moment in this business. To start,
Yeah. Hi,
um,
Stan. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thank you so much for having me, Stan. It is pleasure meeting you here. Yeah,
likewise.
I'm looking forward to share my experience, hear from you about your perspectives, and share my knowledge as well. Yeah, hopefully it will help your audience who are listening to the podcast. So glad to be part of this session, Stan.
Perfect. Perfect. Wonderful. All right. So let's start. Can you introduce what your experience is, what career, what you do, and what kind of transformation work you actually do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sachin Gavle. I've spent about 15 years, between uh, two words. One side there is strategy consulting firms like Strategy and PwC, Accenture Strategy, etc. And then the other side, which is sitting inside the operating companies as chief of staff to COO and running transformation from inside, right? So I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
both the sides, the glossy side of a strategy deck and also the shop
Yeah.
floor reality of actually delivering it, right? And the projects that
Nice.
I typically gravitate towards are operational transformation in asset heavy businesses, cost reduction, performance improvement, capacity, reliability improvement, typically ultimately boils down to the, EBITDA improvement programs, right? So basically, anything, where
Mm-hmm.
a company has good assets, but it's getting the performance out of them, not getting the performance
Yeah.
out of them, that they should be. That's where I typically operate, Fran.
Mm-hmm. Understood. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've had the perspective of both sides of the thing. So that's very important that you know exactly what's happening on both sides. Okay, cool. And you know, you've worked across energy, oil and gas, power, chemicals. What do those industries share operationally, would you say?
Yeah, interesting. I think all of these sectors, compared
Hmm.
to other sectors, they are very intensive, right? And asset heavy
Yeah.
businesses. Compared
Right.
to other sectors like telecom, aviation, those are more on like service sector businesses, right? But you mentioned
Hmm.
energy, oil and gas, chemical, fertilizers, right? These are asset heavy, capital intensive businesses, and where the margin is, it is made or lost in the operating
Hmm.
details, right? Not in a
Right.
strategy offside, right? So be it a refinery or a fertilizer plant or a power plant, you have got some underlying pattern, right? There are large
Hmm.
fixed investments, continuous or batch processes and operations, safety reliability concerns, which are non-negotiables for this sector, and also the labor, which is the workforce, that has been doing things a certain way for decades, right? So,
Hmm.
and in these sectors, the economics are also similar, right?
Yeah.
Small percentage contribution in uptime, maybe yield or energy efficiency, and that translate into a large amount of absolute dollar uptick. Okay, so the
Hmm.
playbook transfers, really well across these sectors. Even though the products look completely different. So I think this is what all of these sectors have in common.
Okay. That's very well said. Very well said. So that's actually some things I've heard that I didn't know. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, if we talk about, thank you for that. Gave me some, background. Understood how that works out. Now, going to the next part. You know, I called it before the technology for those clients. That you have. Um, when a client said to you, they want digital transformation, what's the first thing you go and check?
Interesting question. I think I usually check whether the underlying process is actually sound enough or not before
Right.
even we talk about the technology or a tool. Yeah. So,
Nice.
digitizing or implementing a digital solution, a technology solution for a broken or undefined process, let's say, that
Yes.
only gives you a faster but a more expensive way of doing the wrong
Yes.
thing, right? So the
Yeah.
first question is always, do we have clarity on the process, the data that coming into the process, or who is owning the decision at the end of it? So all of these things,
Hmm.
if these things are not solid, I think no dashboarding or a technology system is going to fix that underlying problem, right? So it just make
Yep.
the those symptoms more visible, which sometimes
Yeah.
even more frustrating for leadership. So that's why when anybody is thinking about digital transformation or implementation, first needs to ensure that the process is fine and the process is smooth.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I would only add that sometimes I feel like there could be a very good process that one department understands, but then the other department, they think of a completely different process. So that's another thing that you got to get them all together and be like, do you guys really know how you want this to do? And I find myself a lot in a situation where they actually don't. Like they start arguing between each other because they think they want it like this, but the actual process is completely different than what they imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with your statement. 100%. If but then at the same time, if sometimes you get like a small business that has the basic process, but it just works really well, and it's so easy to transform that, like to
correct,
automate that,
correct,
very easy.
correct, correct. But I mean,
Yeah,
as companies become, as the processes increases and the systems increases,
yeah,
right? And at that point of time, you need to check and you need to ensure that everything is running smoothly before we are investing some money. Okay, because the digital
yes, exactly,
transformation, there is always an investment associated with it. Okay, and
hundred
so
percent.
that's
Yeah.
why solving the underlying processes should be the first thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right. So if we talk about asset heavy industries, where would you say the real bottleneck is usually hiding, like based on your experience? Is it the people or like the process, the data, maybe systems, or just like the hardware? What would you think? What would you say is the biggest bottleneck?
Interesting question, I think. But if I
Yeah.
had to rank them, the people, process, data, systems you mentioned, I think I would
Yeah.
say process and people, uh, but
Uh-huh.
with data as a third element, right? um,
Mm-hmm.
and
As
systems,
important.
yeah, as important, right? So systems and
Mm-hmm.
equipment, reliability are actually usually the symptoms, but they are not
Mm-hmm.
the root causes. uh, so and
I see.
what I've consistently found that when you dig into any recurring operational problem, it traces back to an unclear process. Okay, and
Right.
unclear process that maybe nobody have quite agreed on it, in terms of the way of
Yeah.
doing it, right? Or maybe people are not being empowered or trained to act, and take it the way it should be, right? But once you
Mm-hmm.
fix these two, the data and the systems question tend to resolve themselves, much more easily. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
again creates a problem.
Right. I agree with that as well. And do you think um, the leaders sometimes wrongly assume these bottlenecks, like based on your experience?
Yeah, I think leaders, sometimes they are focusing more on the high level issues, right? Maybe
Mm,
maybe maybe 30,000 feet, maybe in terms of the revenues or the high level profits, right?
hmm.
But the underlying processes, maybe somebody needs to look into that.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too. You got it right on point. They usually never focus on the actual floor. So like the actual people that are doing the work. And most of the time, I would agree with you. I think the process and the people is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah,
If you get those, yeah, like the mindset of the people, they know what they're doing, and the process makes sense. It's logical. It's fine. Even if they're doing on Excel, it's already all right. And then, it's just the simplicity of like, if the business is growing, then you automate, you get the digitization starting, but it'll all just be a smooth sailing because
yeah.
the people and the process
People and the process.
is the main key.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. Yeah. I'm thinking about the exact same thing most of the time. So, um, what else? Yeah, last question on this part. Why do you think some transformation projects like look brilliant in PowerPoint when they're being presented, and then they just fall apart on the actual shop floor?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen these multiple times in my previous organizations.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is quite a problem everywhere.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe some consulting company comes, they do some advice on paper, PowerPoint, but it ultimately fails on the execution, right? And I think that is because they are designing, they are designed top down by people who are not the one who are actually live with the execution and live with that change every day. Okay, so somebody not
Hmm.
having an
I see.
understanding of the or understanding of the ground realities, and they are making the transformation project on a PowerPoint, it is bound to fail, right? Maybe
Yeah.
a deck that can show a beautiful future state process, but if the person on the floor has was not consulted, right? I mean, the stakeholders are not involved
Yeah.
in the decision making. They doesn't understand why it's changing or feels. It actually adds to work without adding value to them personally, right? And then when
Right.
somebody who goes to implement it, they get lot of frustration, right? Because so, I mean, the projects that actually stick are the ones where the people who are close to the work are people who are actually executing and seeing the impact. They are involved in designing the solution, designing the project as well, right? And where there is a
Hmm.
visible and a structured follow through mechanism, that needs to be present, right?
Mm.
Not just a one time launch kind of an event, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right, right. Yeah, completely agree. I've actually noticed also I can add from my side on that that it's almost like a never-ending cycle that you either have the warehouse manager or like people that are like in the warehouse on the shop floor. They know the problem. They're reaching out. They're trying to fix the problem. They're looking for a solution. They like it. They go to the leadership. They present it, and the leadership is like, "We don't need that," because they don't see that problem.
correct,
But then the exact same thing where we get, it's like CEO would come, like a CTO would come, CFO, they're like, okay, we have a problem, we need to fix it. You're like, okay, this is coming back to the, brilliant PowerPoint. You present it to them, it's all good. We actually deliver what the leadership wants, but then the warehouse floor, they didn't even care about that. So now they have no value. Now they're not
correct,
using the new system.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
So
correct. Absolutely.
it's interesting.
This happens because you have not involved those who are actually delivering it and those who can actually see whether it
Yeah,
is feasible to deliver, whether it will really bring the impact and the value that it is supposed to be achieved, right? So,
exactly. Exactly.
so that's why the stakeholder involvement, starting from the output design and the project design, should be
Hmm.
is super important, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
just like you mentioned. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I've found personally in my experience, any project when I get the warehouse operator, the warehouse manager involved as early as possible, the whole rollout is much smoother
Yeah,
because they know exactly how they want it. So cool. Okay, so that was a great topic. Very good.
yeah.
So now if we talk about the money, like where it actually, hidden costs. Let's talk about that. Where do you think the most money is like lost without anybody really noticing? What would you say?
Hmm. Okay. So I think the gap between the
Hmm.
installed capacity and what they are actually realizing it. Okay, I think
Mm.
that's almost always bigger than what people think, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it is invisible, because it doesn't
Yeah.
show up as a cost line. It shows up as a missed opportunity, right?
Mm.
And it's not only the difference in the capacity, but also the loss in the quality and lost in the upturn of your asset. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
all these three factors, your asset is performing less than the quality, your asset is performing less than the time it is required to run, and it
Mm.
is performing less in terms of the capacity. So all of these three factors, it is
Mm-hmm.
called as OEE. Okay, uh,
Yeah.
so all of these three factors actually important, and these factors are the most important factor where typically companies lose money,
Right.
and the others quite leak in terms of money, might be in the service or the procurement spend, that has
Mm.
grown
Mm-hmm.
organically over years, without anyone redesigning the model, even
Mm.
and even somebody might thinking whether this is really a base cost or not, right? So that's why
Mm-hmm.
companies nowadays are implementing zero based costing, to understand, are we really incurring these kind of capex and this kind of spend?
Right. That's interesting that you mentioned that. So, and you've seen that quite a lot, I'm assuming, based on what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah. I mean, as I said,
Interesting.
typically companies predict the next year's budget based on the historical budget and then just add some margins, 8% increase compared
Right.
to previous year, 12% increase compared to previous year.
Yeah.
But is it really a base cost you have,
I
okay,
see.
in
I
terms
see
of
what
the
you're saying.
capacity that you are running? So that's why the
That's.
base cost analysis is important in terms of all of these service and procurement spend. But
I see.
the
Mm-hmm.
primary loss of money that happens is in the capacity, quality, and the uptime of the asset.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. That's very interesting. I didn't know that, to be honest. I don't deal with procurement too much, so that was kind of like, I thought that was just the way it works. But the way you explain it to me now, yeah, it's I don't think I've seen, like, maybe I've seen maybe one or two companies that actually, they calculate the budget rather than just add the margin, because I thought that was just a normal thing, just add
Yeah,
the budget, that's it.
yeah, no,
I see. That's very interesting.
yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. On that note, on cutting costs and stuff like that, have you ever seen that maybe like a company's cutting costs in a way that it will actually hurt the operations later? Have you ever dealt with that?
Yes. I think this is also
Oh,
one
really?
of the important point when companies think about cost cutting. And the biggest
Uh-huh.
one that typically hurts in terms of cost cutting is the maintenance and the reliability spend. That is actually
Oh, okay.
that is actually get cut first, uh, because they are in the easiest line item to defer. Okay, and also the
Mm-hmm.
the value is also higher, right? But the impact doesn't
Right.
show up for next 3 to 6 months. The budgeting person, and the approval, everybody, the CFO, they celebrate, but the impact
Yes,
show
because
after 6 to 12 months, because the asset shows its impact. Asset shows the
yeah.
downgrade in terms of the reliability and its performance. Yeah, and another
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
warning sign is when in terms of headcount reduction. Yeah, and when headcount reduction, manpower cost reduction, it happens without redesigning the process or the work rule, right?
Ah.
Ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
you end up with the same work, but with fewer people, lot of
Mm.
dissatisfaction of the work, lot of stress, and of course, ultimately the quality seepage. slippage, right?
I
Um,
see.
so
Yeah.
if these cost cutting targets are being um, set without the operation leadership in the room, and that's usually a sign the cuts are coming from a spreadsheet, right? And they are not
Mm,
have actually thought through in terms of where to cut and how to cut and what will happen after that. So I think these are some
right.
of the areas company needs to look forward
Yeah.
to and to think that this cost cutting will hurt them later if they not redesign the process and not think in terms of what will happen 12 to 24 months down the line.
Right, right. So they never even think of like how do we even replace this if we're, for example, as you mentioned, reduce the headcount, then we're still going to be scaling, but like we need to like replace that like somehow with a system or with
Yeah,
something else like a different workflow.
yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see. That's terrible. That sounds
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds really bad.
Correct.
Oh wow. That's very interesting. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next one. Next section. So, just reliability. I called it like that. So when um, like I would say, what when maintenance slips, so how does that ripple into inventory, procurement, planning, and customer commitments, would you say?
I think it's a domino effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
That most people don't trace all the way through. So when we think
Mm-hmm.
about unreliable equipment, what happens? It forces the production planning to build in more buffer time, right? Ultimately, it again
Mm-hmm.
inflates the inventory, which in turn
Yep.
ties up your working capital, all right? And procurement,
Mm-hmm.
and a procurement which has to keep more spare parts on hand, just in case something happens.
Yes.
And
Yep.
when that unplanned breakdown does happen, right? Then you're scrambling and struggling to resequence the production schedule, right? Which often means
Mm-hmm.
customer commitment slippage, right? So
Exactly.
so a maintenance issue that is actually look like a small line item problem on the plant floor, it actually shows up, maybe three, four departments away
Yeah.
as a missed delivery date, right? So and very
Yep.
few, very few organizations actually, connect those dots when they are, root causing the customer complaints.
Wow. Yeah, so far what I'm hearing is that based on your experience, you've seen a lot of companies that have those little things that are just like wasting money, not planning ahead properly,
Yeah,
and it's just the way it goes, yeah.
yeah,
Somebody doesn't notice something. That's
correct.
crazy. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and on that note, follow-up question. What would you say what separates like reactive maintenance from a more mature reliability strategy in a company?
Interesting question. I think, see,
Yeah,
um, reactive maintenance is actually fixing things after they
on the
break,
go.
after
Yeah,
they
yeah,
break. Yeah,
exactly.
that is
Yeah.
that is actually reactive. As you ask for reactive versus reliability. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
reactive is when you fix things after they are break, right? So and
Yeah, yeah.
you're always playing some defense, and
Mm-hmm.
your entire team's rhythm and workflow is built around that firefighting, right? But when you
Exactly.
think about a mature kind of a reliability strategy, uh, it is quite opposite to that, right? You are
Mm-hmm.
using conditional monitoring, right? Or maybe a FEMA, sorry, which is a failure mode analysis, and then you predict
Mm-hmm.
and prevent failures before they happen,
Exactly.
right? And then
Exactly.
in that case, these maintenance become a planned and a scheduled activity rather than a firefighting, rather than an emergency, right?
Exactly.
And
Right.
um, I have run some of these deep dive across critical assets in the factory, where maybe simply identifying the real availability and the performance loss, quality loss, and acting on them in a systematic way, it takes
Mm-hmm.
your OEE, right? As I mentioned, original equipment efficiency, right? It takes it
Mm-hmm.
from maybe in the range of 50s to maybe more than 80s, right? In the 80%,
Mm-hmm.
within an year and a half, right? And actually that is a shift in mindset, uh, which is really a different game, when you think about having a reliability kind of a strategy.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very well said. Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen also that many, many times. Most of the companies I've ran into, unfortunately, unless it's like a really big conglomerate, like that's like, in multiple countries, multiple regions, most of the time, mid-size, smaller businesses, they just firefight everything. They don't
Yeah.
prepare for anything at all. So, okay. Um, and on that note, how much would you say of that reliability is really about like habits and ownership rather than tools? Would you say like digital tools, like physical tools, doesn't matter?
Um, I think tools are also, super important. But
Mm-hmm.
as I said, in the start,
With the process.
yeah, the process
Yeah,
is first, right? And
got it.
first is you set up the process, then you ensure that your manpower and your labor team members delivers that process, right? And then over
Mm-hmm.
and above that, when you decide to improve the productivity of your process and the efficiency of your process and your labor, then you bring in the digital tools that will again accelerate your efficiency of your reliability maintenance and reliability strategy.
Yeah, yeah. So got it. Yeah, just like what we talked about, same thing basically applies here as well. Just process first, then get the tools, and then it should be pretty straightforward after that. Got it. Okay. Just a couple more questions left. Let's quickly talk about the systems that you've seen. So many companies have a full ERP system and they still can't see what's happening in their operations. Based on your experience, why does that happen, would you say?
Yeah. So I think again I will bring back the process and the
The
and the
process?
and the and
Yeah.
the and the and the team issue, right? Because
Right.
you see the ERP system is as good as the the discipline
The team that's using
behind
it.
the data going into it, okay? And
Oh, and the data too.
right, and the data and the process going into it, right? So and
Mm-hmm.
most
Mm-hmm.
companies implement the software without first fixing how their people are behaving, how their people are actually capturing the information, and how that
Mm-hmm.
information is being updated, right? And then that updated
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
information then in turn goes to the ERP system, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
you can have a most expensive ERP in the world, but if the shop floor process and the data that is coming out of it is kind of an entered late, or maybe there is an inconsistency, or maybe it is based on an assumption rather than the actual reading, then the visibility you get out
Mm-hmm.
of that ERP system is just a kind of an illusion
Yeah.
that it is precise, but it is not real insight, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
always, you have to approach this from a business process side first, and the system is the enabler, and it is not a fix. So I mean, so that's why
Mm-hmm.
every ERP or a technology implementation, typically consulting companies, they think about business process reengineering, business process
Got it.
understanding reengineering, and then they implement the system.
Right, right. Well, that's really good actually. That this same thing applies to so many parts of a proper implementation, proper system, proper like management, maintenance, etc. Processes, proper setup, properly set up processes, and team that knows what they're doing, like the
Yeah,
people that they're doing.
yeah.
It's really
So
good.
so processes gives you output in terms of data, and then
Yeah,
that data goes as a input to the ERP. So
exactly.
those two elements you have to solve before implementing the ERP.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then with the right data, as you mentioned,
Yeah,
with the right output, the leadership, then the management can actually make good operational calls, just like how we talked about, instead of,
Absolutely.
doing that firefighting all the time. They can actually be prepared for everything that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Okay, cool. Last question on the ERP, because we you already kind of answered a couple of these. Just specifically on the ERPs and just any digital systems that you've seen that actually fail. What would be the biggest thing? Is like design, implementation, adoption, maybe data quality. If we forget about the process and the people, specifically just the software side of things.
Uh, Yeah, I think similar to when we design a strategy, execution is important.
Mm,
Similarly, when you think about implementing an ERP, the adoption, right? I think almost every
yes.
time, and it's usually a downstream symptom of design, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
system was not designed around how people actually work, how the adoption suffers, and then data
Mm-hmm.
quality suffer right after that, right? Because people find workarounds, rather than using the system as it is intended, right? And I have seen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
technically sound implementations, they stall, simply because the people who are entering the data daily, they are not brought into the design conversations in the early enough, in the design
Just
phase,
like we
right?
talked about, yeah.
Yeah. So the
Mm-hmm.
system, felt were imposed, rather than they are actually useful to them.
I see. Very well said too, actually. Yeah, you just impose on them, on the actual people that are going to be using it. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I agree with that. And on the people now, let's you know, move on from the ERP. I've actually talked to a couple of people that had to deal with adoption, and you mentioned on that it's one of those things that's hard to comprehend properly. Um, how do you approach that? Have you had those issues like with the adoption with people that they don't want to have any kind of transformation? How did you deal with it?
Uh, Yeah, so I think it's a learning process always, right? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, you always ensure that people, as I mentioned, people needs to be involved in the design phase,
Mm-hmm.
from day one, right? And
I see.
once they are involved in the design phase, they will support you in the execution phase as well. Okay, because they know
Mm,
how it will run and how they will potentially use it, um,
I see.
in the longer term, right? So, in my opinion, I
Mm-hmm.
typically ensure that the execution team, the adoption team, the main user is consistently kept aligned to what is being delivered and what is being designed, and how the future state look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Understood. So just basically keeping them in the loop. So
Yeah,
that's your go-to. You just right away get everybody involved, see what they're saying, not just talk to the leadership.
yeah.
I see. I got it. That's really good too. I usually do that as well. Well played. Um, let's yeah, well this question we already kind of covered it. So, um, let's say how do you like get the trust of the people on the floor? Because I've had that before, and it's quite difficult because again, like the operators, like the leaderships, obviously you already talked with them, you already had that PowerPoint presentation, everything is good, they love it, it's great. How do you gain the trust of the actual people that are going to be using the system or whatever, like that you're transforming?
You use their trust. Um, as I said, I mean, if somebody is involved in the process in the design stage, they
That's
think
how.
that that's how you do it, right? Because they
Uh,
they now they now feel that they are also part of the design and execution, and they feel themselves invested in your ERP or a technology implementation journey, right? And
mm-hmm,
once they feel invested, they will also parallelly ensure that you don't fail in the design, so that they will potentially be able to adopt it and use it, in a perfect way. So you
mm-hmm,
earn their trust by involving them, and understanding the user challenges rather than making a tool that will nobody will use, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Um, okay, and on that part too, if we talked about, let me position this question this way: if you walked into a company with strong assets but weak operational discipline, where would you start?
Wow, this is
It's a
interesting,
big one, yeah.
big question.
Yeah,
So strong asset but weak operational discipline, right?
exactly.
I think
So
I
back to the process, but we have the strong assets. Yeah, the process is just not good,
yeah,
but the assets are good.
yeah. See, I start by I understanding where the real bottleneck is, okay,
Mm.
before touching any tool or any initiative, right?
Oh, that's good.
And maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you understand that through some workshops with the leaders or business unit leaders, or maybe you spend more time on the floor, not on the slide, but you spend time with the people on ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? And these strong asset, but with weak kind of a discipline, it
Mm-hmm.
almost always means that there is no consistent operating rhythm or operating ways of
Mm.
working, right? There is
I see.
no shared process, there is no set process, or maybe a scorecard, or maybe an ownership of decisions in terms of KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
There is no governance to review the process and the KPIs. So there is no cadence, right? So first, I typically do is to put uh, a small governance structure, and define small KPIs, which everybody can agree, and then you set up a regular governance review, with the
Mm-hmm.
accountability. You uh, bring people to the table, every week, and then you ask them, how we are performing, right? This actually
Right.
needs to be done, before you launch any big initiative, because I think discipline has to exist um,
Mm-hmm.
before before any transformation that can stick.
Right. Well, just like we talked about, coming back to the processes, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? So, yeah, understood. Um, okay, and just literally like two more questions. What actually would you say separates the companies that transform successfully from the ones that just run endless initiatives? I've seen those like multiple times that we've had like let me give you a quick story. We've had clients that they know about us. They come to us, they don't like something, they go to another company, that fails. Half a year later, they consider us again, then they're like, nah, let's still do something cheaper, maybe again cutting costs, whatever. Then that fails, and then only on the third, fourth time, after 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of just wasting money, wasting time, they come to like a proper company. They understand the process better, and then that in it becomes an actual transformation, successful transformation. So what would you say separates these two kind of companies that they nail it down, they know what they want, they get that they spend a lot of money, that's fine, but they get the transformation done, maybe on the first or second try. Maybe some things happen, that's okay, but they're not doing this constantly trying all these different things to implement.
See, I think the main purpose and the main challenge of transformation
Mm-hmm.
lies in the
Mm-hmm.
follow through and making people
Oh, okay.
accountable to their KPIs. Okay, I think
Mm.
these two are super important criterias, more than even the quality of the initial idea itself. Okay,
Mm.
and
Okay.
I have seen some of the well designed programs, worth millions of dollars, but
Mm-hmm.
the difference between the ones that is delivered and ones that is not delivered, is not the strategy, but it is how you track those projects on a week by week basis,
Mm,
whether and making the owners held accountable, right? Um,
mm,
and um, and whether the leadership kept uh, showing to the review meetings every 6 months, 3 months, okay, not just at a launch, right? So you
right.
need to ensure that team is there and they are reviewing, um, and they are delivering their accountability, and somebody is there to check that accountability on a week by week
Hmm.
basis. Yeah,
I see. So someone has to be tracking it properly, and most likely, like on a weekly basis, getting that information to the leadership. I would say,
yeah,
from my experience.
yeah. So that's
Yeah,
why the role of a transformation head, a PMO, is super important
yeah,
to make people feel accountable,
right,
by
right.
running that governance and the KPI reviews.
Very true. And I can add from my side to that is I also find that from the team that's doing like any kind of transformation or implementation that needs to be a project manager or anything like that, that's actually, doing these updates. And then from the client side as well. And that's when it seems to be working the best.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
otherwise, everyone just gets lost with doing things endlessly,
yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay, perfect. Just have last question. It's more of kind of like an open one. If you could give one piece of advice to a let's say COO or plant leader the day before they start a transformation, what would it be? So just your peers.
Interesting. So I would say, get the baseline and the accountability structure, right before
Mm-hmm.
you announce anything which is ambitious. Okay.
Mm,
So that is my, one sentence kind of one piece of advice, because
nice.
I have seen many transformation programs. They are launched with, lot of energy, with some
Yeah.
hi-fi kickoff event, but without a clear big picture, how to make people accountable, and a mechanism to track the project owners, holding their dates. Uh, that actually that energy, fades,
Mm-hmm.
within a quarter. So ultimately, it is boils down to this one sentence, right? And which is, you need to plan. Don't fail in the design, but they fail, in the follow through. So I think
Mm-hmm.
a follow through muscle needs to be built first.
I like that. Very well said as well. Following through is one of the biggest things that I've taken out of today's call. It's very true. It's sometimes it's even if you choose like the wrong system, for example, whatever, just following through it to the end and fully, like exploring that option. I think sometimes you could actually end up with a successful transformation. To be honest.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
It's just getting it. Like if you chose this route, go all the way with it, and then see where it lands. If it doesn't work out, then at least you know that you tried, right? It's not that you're like skipping out like halfway. So completely agree with you. Well, very well said. All right, we've been what like 45 minutes. It's pretty good. That's it for me. Hopefully the questions were good. Hopefully you had a good time. Um,
Yes, yes,
because
Stan.
it
I
was
mean,
good for me.
the questions were very
Right.
interesting. I mean, I think,
Uh-huh.
you tried to understand the challenges on ground. I think,
Exactly. Yeah.
uh, and why typically transformation projects fail. So this is quite, this is super important compared to just defining a strategy, but how the execution needs to be done. So
Exactly.
yeah, the questions were great. I really hope,
Perfect.
it helps your audience in the near future.
Yeah. Absolutely.